One of the most satisfying feelings for any gamer is when you solve a puzzle all by yourself. But there are certain sections in titles that aren't just difficult, they are borderline impossible. We're talking about teasers so preposterously asinine next to no one could deduce the solution without relying on a walkthrough or getting very lucky through guesswork. I'm Sai for WhatCulture.com, and these are 10 video game solutions you'd never get without a guide. Number 10, the Inception bonus level, Donkey Kong Country. Completionists of the 1990s searched everywhere in Donkey Kong Country to discover all 43 bonus areas. By the end, nearly everyone got stuck on the same level, Oil Drum Alley. The first two bonus areas in this level are relatively easy to find, but the third one eluded even the most hardcore players. So where the heck is it? Well, the reason why it's so difficult to ascertain is because it's the only bonus level in the game that's inside another bonus level. After you use the first TNT barrel to blow up a nearby wall, you'll be transported to a secret area where you need to match up the images on the barrels to win a prize. You need to match the barrels so they display an image of a single banana. If you do this, you'll be rewarded with a barrel. You need to use this barrel on the right wall to unlock the extra bonus level. Just to make it extra tough, you cannot throw the barrel at the wall, you need to jump at the wall with the barrel and press right to enter this secret location. Good grief. Number 9, resetting the computer. Literally. X-Men. The Mega Drive X-Men game is regarded as one of the toughest titles on the system due to its unfairly placed platforms and relentless enemies. Even if you memorized every jump and could counter every villain's attack, gamers tended to get stuck on the penultimate level, Mojo's Crunch. After you destroy the screen at the end of the area, you'll be instructed to reset the computer now to face Mojo. After exploring the area, you'll be mystified to learn that there are no switches or levers to restart the machine. Players scoured for hours seeking a reset switch, not acknowledging that there was one right in front of them the entire time. When the screen tells you to reset the computer, it means you need to press the reset button on your Mega Drive. If this puzzle was in the first or second stage, the player might consider resetting their console, but since Mojo's Crunch is the second last level, nobody wanted to risk losing all that progress up to a certain point. You have to commend the developers for concocting a brain teaser that Hideo Kojima would be proud of, but it's baffling that they thought players would figure it out without help. Number 8, navigating through the overworld, The Legend of Zelda. If you've ever been stumped by a section in a Zelda game, how do you think gamers felt playing the original? At the time, most games revolved around blasting as many enemies as possible or racing towards a goal. When The Legend of Zelda was released in 1986, it blew gamers' minds. You couldn't beat it by killing every Octorok you stumbled upon, you had to use your head. If you couldn't surmise where a certain key was, you couldn't complete the game. To make it harder, it was one of the first mainstream action-adventure titles that didn't have conventional levels. The Legend of Zelda takes place in an overworld, which you must navigate through to locate weapons, artifacts, and dungeons. Because a lot of areas look similar or identical, players ended up going round in circles. For a gamer to find a Legend of Zelda guide that showed the entire map must have felt like discovering the Triforce itself. Thankfully, a simple button press will bring up the map in most future Zelda games to observe where you still needed to explore. How anyone managed to complete the original game without this option is nothing short of a miracle. Number 7, Egyptian Temple, GoldenEye 007. The Egyptian Temple level in GoldenEye 007 can only be unlocked by completing every mission on 00 Agent mode. Your mission is to locate the Golden Gun and use it to defeat the Witch Doctor Baron Samedi. The voodoo priest's health is so high he's virtually unkillable unless you shoot him with the Golden Gun. Now, finding the weapon is a piece of cake. Obtaining it, on the other hand, is an entirely different matter. The second you take one step towards the pistol, it will become inaccessible while 4 indestructible turrets activate, blasting you to smithereens. The only way to get the Golden Gun is to walk on the floor tiles in a specific order. Now you have 2 choices. Try dozens upon dozens of tile patterns, knowing it will result in you dying more times than you can count, or use a walkthrough and beat the level in 5 minutes. It's possible to solve the tile pattern through sheer trial and error over a period of several hours, but you'll struggle to find a single person who did it without the assistance of a guide. Number 6, log rolling, Asterix and the Great Rescue. Asterix and the Great Rescue was a platformer for the Mega Drive that was heavily criticised for its difficulty. Not only does the game have clumsy controls and unrealistic time limits, the puzzles are so vague you'll be clueless how to progress most of the time. Probably the worst example of this is the third boss, the log rolling Roman. As the level begins, you'll land on a river log. There is a centurion on the log that will roll it to the left of the screen, killing you almost immediately. The first time this happens, your first thought will probably be, what just happened? What you're supposed to do is press A, B, and right at breakneck speed to force force the Roman to the other side of the screen, knocking him off the log. Because there's no instructions on what to do, most people progressed beyond this level using a password for later stages rather than defeating the Roman. Number 5. The NPCs lie to you. Castlevania 2: Simon's Quest. The 1986 action platformer Castlevania was such a success it was no surprise when a sequel was released 1 year later. It had some similar mechanics but integrated RPG elements such as visiting towns, buying consumables and conversing with the townsfolk. When you can't figure out where to go or how to unlock a certain artifact, you speak to NPCs to gather clues. This strategy may work in other franchises like Final Fantasy or The Legend of Zelda, but it won't help if you play the Japanese version of Castlevania 2. According to the producer, Koji Igarashi, the NPCs are deliberate liars and intentionally mislead you. One of the characters tells you that a magic potion will destroy the wall of evil. Naturally, the player will search every area for this evil wall, unaware that it doesn't exist. Since no rational person assumes that NPCs are deceiving them, gamers went on a wild goose chase. The only way to complete Castlevania 2 is to follow the instructions of the sacred text hidden around the game, not the advice of the NPCs. Number 4. A puzzle that goes meta. Last Window: The Secret of Cape West. Last Window: The Secret of Cape West was a criminally underrated puzzle game for the Nintendo DS. Sadly, developing company Sing went defunct shortly after its release. Sing decided to go out with a bang since Last Window harbours one of the most head-scratching riddles in video game history. For the puzzle in question, you need to literally think outside the box. When you're told to close a music box to receive a key, you assume you're meant to press a series of buttons. What you're actually meant to do is close your DS. But you're not supposed to close the DS fully. You need to keep it open a little until a certain note is played, then press a button before reopening the DS and tapping the screen. It doesn't tell you to do that, you're just expected to figure it out somehow. Also, if you played Last Window on an emulator, you cannot complete this part since there's no DS to close. It's kind of like Sing knew they were going bankrupt, so they devised a game with an unreasonably tough puzzle just to screw with everyone one last time. Number 3. The Extractor: Grim Fandango. There's a rule of thumb with Grim Fandango: don't use logic to solve a puzzle, ever. How do you make a guard move from his spot? Well, in a logical game, you would distract him. In Grim Fandango, you get a balloon animal of a dead worm, fill it with foam, stuff it into a tube machine until it jams, forcing the guard to fix it. If that sounds convoluted, well, it only gets worse. Some puzzles in Grim Fandango are hard, even when you know what to do. While in the petrified forest, Manny and his friend Glottis come across an extractor which they need to destabilize. To do this, you need to place a wheelbarrow on the hoses attached to the extractor and then allow Glottis to climb on top of it. After you pull a lever, the extractor will shake like crazy until it falls apart. However, you can't just place the wheelbarrow randomly on the hoses. You have to place it on specific hoses, but only when they are in sync with the movements of the extractor's pumps. This is so confusing, watching a step-for-step video guide barely helps. More often than not, players complete this section purely out of luck. Number 2. Save the rat or die. King's Quest V. If you fail at completing a difficult section in most games, you can try again. However, if you didn't perform the right action or complete certain criteria in King's Quest V, the game becomes unwinnable. If you think that's crazy, the player doesn't realise until hours later. One example of this is when you see a cat chasing a rat beside a bakery. To help the rat escape, you need to hurl your shoe at the feline. When you're tied up in the Swarthy Hog Inn later, the same rodent will return to nibble through your ropes, allowing you to break free. If you didn't rescue the rat earlier, you cannot progress beyond this point. If you saved your progress after the rat was killed, you have to restart the entire game. How frustrating would all other video games be if they demonstrated the same level of cruelty as King's Quest V? Imagine reaching the final boss of a Super Mario Bros. Game only to receive a game over screen because you didn't pick up a specific coin hours earlier. Ironically, King's Quest V was criticised upon its release by some magazines, including Computer Gaming World, because it was deemed too easy. And number 1, the entire game, TAKESHI'S Challenge. In TAKESHI'S Challenge, you play as a salaryman who seeks a treasure located in a mysterious cave. Although that sounds pretty straightforward, it's anything but. TAKESHI'S Challenge was masterfully crafted to make the gamer's life a living hell. When the game begins in your boss's office, you need to ignore him, go to the bank, empty your account, learn to play a stringed instrument, get drunk, pass out, divorce your wife, pay alimony, and speak to your your boss do get a raise. If you don't carry out these steps precisely, you cannot complete the game. Oh, and by the way, if you think these series of tasks are impossible to work out, that's the first 5 minutes of the title. The rest of Takeshi's Challenge is just as punishingly difficult. Because there are almost no hints on what to do or where to go, the player will solve most of the puzzles through an unrealistic amount of experimentation. Although the game came with a free guide, it wasn't complete since the author died while writing it. Very few people in the world have completed Takeshi's Challenge, but it's a safe bet that most haven't done it without the use of a walkthrough. Takeshi's Challenge is kind of like its own bizarre level of hell where you feel doomed all of the time. And speaking of doomed, here are 10 video games where you were doomed from the start. Click it to stay with us here at WhatCulture Gaming, and otherwise leave a comment down below on video game sections that you couldn't beat without a walkthrough, and make sure you like this video and subscribe. Head over to whatculture.com for more content every day. Don't forget you can follow me on Twitter at Cyniac_123. I've been Cy for WhatCulture, and have a good week.